All right. Hey folks, welcome to the Stats and Standings plugins installation guide and walkthrough. This is going to be a fun one and there's a lot of things you can do with it, but we'll start at the beginning. Like usual, you're going to unzip the file. It's going to have a README, the plugins file, the remote control component, etc. So we're going to start by opening the README. That's going to guide you through installation. And the first step we're going to do after that is go ahead and bring in your SDK, open up your options, scroll down to the overlay section, look for plugins, hit the ellipses, open up your plugins, and then down at the bottom left, click on import. You're going to find that plugin that you just unzipped, the stats plugin, and load it up. Click open. I'm going to click cancel because I already have it loaded up in this project file. There's nothing you need to change for now. We'll kind of come back to the setup once we get everything installed. Next thing you're going to want to install is the remote control component. To do that, go into your remote control section. You're going to press F2 to enter the edit mode. And then down here, you can hit this drop down beside import from library and change it to import from file. Click that. Find that remote control component for the stats plugin that you just unzipped. Open that up. And again, as usual, when you install a new remote control component, it's going to be at the bottom left of your remote control screen, wherever that is. I already have this one installed right now, and we'll take a look at this, and we'll come back to that in just a moment. The next setting you need to add to get started is your style overrides. Copy and paste that out of the README file into here. And this is set up just like the other plugins. There's a bunch of things about positioning and font, and then there's a separate section for the title if you want to kind of play with that, change the font or whatever. Hit OK there. Then the very last thing we're going to do is go into our initial variable values. You're going to add just a one-liner from the README file that hides the stats overlay, just like all our other plugins. All right. And then to get this to work, basically how this plugin operates is that you feed it CSV files that are, it could be statistics, could be driver point standings, it could be a schedule, it could be a list of great recipes, whatever you want it to be. And I'll show you how to use the plugin to do all of those things. But the key here is that you need to know and set up this web server data folder path. If you haven't used this before, SDK allows you to create your own local server so that you can access images and other types of files. So if you just need to set this to a folder that you know how to get to on your computer and want to use for this. The second setting you need to change is this listening port. It needs to be set to 8000 simply because that's what's coded into the plugin. If for some reason you need to use a different port number, that's fine. Just make sure that it matches here, and then you're going to need to go back into the plugin code, find and replace all of the localhost 8000 references. There's only a couple of them depending on the different types of files you're going to use. It shouldn't be that hard to do. For example, if we open it up right now and take a look, there is one reference here in the initialize tab on line 17. Then in the update tab, there is one reference on line 63. That's actually it. So those two places are the only places you need to change that localhost port number if you don't want to use 8000 for some reason. Or you can just change it to 8000 and you're good to go. All right, again, this feeds off of a CSV file. The main one that is set up to use and will give you the most flexibility is going to be the default standings statistics download from SimRacer Hub. So if you go to SimRacer Hub and go to standings for your league, and this only works if you're an admin of the league, but I'll show you how to do it if you aren't. But let's start with the easiest way. If you are an admin for the league, when you click on season standings, the big black letters right in the middle of the header, gives you a bunch of options. One of them is export driver standings in CSV format. That's what you want to use. Hit that, and you're going to download a CSV file that has basically everything we see here on the screen. But the important thing here is that the column header names are specific so that the plugin can toggle them on and off. The other thing that's important is when SimRacer Hub generates a CSV, for it to work and function properly, it can't have any commas in it. So generating a CSV through SimRacer Hub will eliminate columns from your point totals and other number-based statistics. It will also remove all the line breaks here in these 2-line column headers. So if you were to copy and paste this out manually, you would still have line breaks and commas in it. You would need to remove those manually to make it work with the plugins as they're looking for that perfect CSV format. But if you use this option to export in CSV format through SimRacer Hub, it does that work for you. Then all you need to do is find that download file, move it to that folder we talked about in SDK. Again, that is down in the web server section. There's a data folder path. Move the file there and name it something easy to remember. Easiest one's going to be stats. I like to use that because it's short and sweet. And then because you're going to need to type it in at least once, depending on how you plan on doing it. So let's walk through some examples. I have a couple different files already set up here that we can use. And the first one I use, I named the file stats. So in that folder, I have a CSV file called stats.csv. So here in the settings, in the SDK remote control panel, I'm going to type in stats. And then you can make your title whatever you want it to be. It can also just be blank. And when you click show here, you're going to see what came up. So I have points, gap from first, and gap to next currently toggled on. And again, these, let's see, how many are there? These 14 columns that all have a toggle on and an off button are the standard columns that come with that SimRacer Hub export. And so I can toggle whichever ones I want. If I just want to look at, some win stats on the season, I could do it this way. If I do want to pay attention to the points, I can do it that way. If I want to show, hey, who's got the most stage points this season, I can do that. So you can, from this one CSV file, you can do a lot of storytelling depending on what you're trying to accomplish on the broadcast. Usually, it's probably going to be points, especially at the end of a season, but all these other things come with it. Teams, incident counts, if you want to see who are the safest drivers, etc., etc. You get the idea. But what if you want to do something different? What if I also want to know, something other than the standard columns? Well, there's a toggle for that too. So you can add any columns you want, named anything that doesn't, isn't conflicting with the standard SimRacer Hub column names that are already here. And so I put in some of the drivers' dogs' names. So by clicking this additional columns, it will enable any column that is not named one of the things of these other 14 or 16, whatever it is, all the standard ones. And these don't have to be text. These can be images. So here, if you include a column called image, you could add that. So you could do driver number images. You could do driver profile picture, portrait images. It could be a car picture, whatever you want to do. And to do that in the CSV file, you can either just use a URL to a public, image, or you can use a localhost 8000 URL format to reference any local pictures. And I'll show you what that looks like here. If I jump over to my folder and open up where's stats. There it is. Here's what that CSV looks like. Now, I usually edit my CSVs either in Google Sheets or something else. But right here, you'll see the image format. So anything that you want to show that's a local file, you put it in that same web server data folder path, and then you can reference it using this URL, http://localhost:8000 or whatever port number you're using, / and then the file name. PNGs tend to work best, but you could use JPEGs or I think anything else that is HTML friendly. But again, it doesn't have to be just these things. If we jump back in here, another thing you might run into is that the images might be too big or too small, so you can actually edit those right here very easily. The X and the Y kind of like limitations on the image to make sure it's small enough, big enough for showing what you want to. And if you have wide aspect ratio pictures, you can set it up so that the rows aren't all spaced out. So that's all good fun. What if I want something completely different? Like I want to look at maybe a race schedule. So I've included 2 example schedules here. First one I just named schedule. After you edit, it'll come up, and this is a great kind of moment here. So because this file doesn't have the traditional SimRacer Hub format, you're going to get this error unless you hit to toggle on the additional columns. And once you do, it'll load up. And so this is a historical schedule showing who's won races so far this season, how many laps they were, and this could be any column names you want. I included another one that's more of a future-looking schedule. This file is Schedule 2. Again, you can name your files whatever you want, but make it something that makes sense to you so you can change it on the fly in the broadcast. So for Schedule 2, it's a little more forward-looking, but you could also include images in your schedule if you like. And again, the sizing, we'll set that up. You can see how you might need to play around with it to get it to look just the way you want, fill your screen or not, depending on how you're planning to use this. And then I think the only thing I didn't mention yet is that, yeah, you can make the title whatever you want. You can also limit the number of rows here at the top. So if let's go back to our stats file. And say I'm looking at this, but maybe I only want the top 4 because this is my season finale race, and only the top 4 are eligible for points anyway. So you can scale this up and down however you like it. If you make this number larger than the number of rows in the CSV, it'll just show however many there are. There won't be any error or anything, so you don't have to guess that. And that's pretty much it. So again, the keys here are know where that web server folder is, put in CSV files in that location and know what their file names are. And otherwise, this is pretty similar to all the other plugins. You need to make sure to get the plugin in. You need to get your style overrides set up so that it's visible in the right place to get you started. You can adjust that all you want. But otherwise, that's how this one works. So, I'm curious to see what people are going to do, whether it's schedules, stats, even driver profiles or things. There's a lot of options. Basically, anything you can put in a table, you can put in this. It's pretty similar to the window components that are already built into SDK, but it's a little more easier just to swap out those CSV files and have lots of different data. So you could have stats, schedules, and other maybe past season statistics as well, however you want to do it. If you are not an admin of SimRacer Hub and you need to get these numbers, manually, keep in mind those things I said. You need to eliminate all columns from all commas from numbers, and you need to eliminate any line returns, line breaks within the cells. The easiest way to do that would be just to I'm going to include the default template CSV file that comes out of SimRacer Hub so that you could paste in your own driver names and driver data without messing with the headers, so that it should work right away with this and give you the option to toggle on and off whatever of these default statistics you're interested in. And that's going to wrap it up here for the installation guide and walkthrough on the stats.